So I got a question about the difference between what is a sensory diet and sensory integration. So that's the question that one of you asked me, and I wanted to share my views about that. So, sensory diet is a diet which a therapist, your occupational therapist, will provide to you for your child according to the needs of your child, which may involve, do this much of vestibular, do this much of proprioceptive activities, do this much of tactile activities. So that kind of a diet would be prescribed to you. And this is also changed on a regular basis, which means, like every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or maybe in a month, that needs to be changed because the child's system changes, right? Sensory integration is therapy which is conducted by your therapist who's trained in sensory integration. What do I mean by that? In sensory diet, it's like, do this deep pressure, do this swinging, or do some wheelbarrow walking or some joint compression. Like that would be the kind of a diet that you're following, which is like a prescription, like how a doctors would give you a prescription. So something like that it is. Sensory integration is more like a responsive way of, what you say, working with the child, which means, for example, if I'm doing a session with a child, and if I remember working with a girl, she came to me, I made the swing go angular, okay, and I was observing what's that doing to the child's arousal level. Is this girl able to look at me better? Is she able to, have those emotion sharing moments? Is she referencing with me? Is she giving me eye contact? Those are the kinds of things that I observe when I'm providing an angular input. If I feel this child is comfortable with the angular input and is able to give me eye contact and, able to talk to me, then I have something called as adaptive responses. And there are different types of adaptive responses. It could be a motor adaptive response, it could be a verbal adaptive response, it could be a cognitive adaptive response. There are different levels of adaptive responses. So when a child is comfortable processing the input, the therapist demands an adaptive response from the child, which takes the child from one level to the next level. And then if I provide that activity, like if I give an activity which is a little challenging, for example, to the child, and if I feel, oh God, I think child is losing eye contact, child is getting stressed out, little bit of stress is okay, but getting too stressed out, then I modify the task and maybe even modify the way I'm providing the vestibular input to the child. So, what I'm trying to convey is sensory integration is a moment by moment attunement with the child. You're constantly monitoring, the therapist is constantly monitoring what is this input doing to the child. Is this angular input comfortable? Is the orbital input comfortable? Oh, my child has got too hyper aroused. So, they would give a proprioceptive activity or a deep touch pressure activity. Or my child seems to be comfortable. Let me challenge this child back into the swing and do some activity. So, what I'm trying to convey is there is a moment to moment attunement to the child's arousal state. And the aim is to get the child's functioning in that optimum zone of arousal, through vestibular, proprioceptive, and tactile inputs, also auditory inputs. It could be therapeutic listening, it could be the safe and sound protocol, it could be using the mouth to regulate the child, which could involve biting onto something, blowing or sucking, or doing a lot of activities with the mouth, which would also help with regulation. So what I'm saying is sensory diet is like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, okay, and you're working with your child. But sensory integration is you're responding, the therapist is responding on a minute, second to second basis on should I continue, should I stop? Oh, my child is better, now let me go higher. Oh, this is too difficult, let me go lower. So there's a lot of what you say, lot of work happening which looks like play. And that's what sensory integration is. I hope that gives you an idea. And what do we achieve at the end of it? It's not the activity that the child has to master, but while the child is engaging in these activities, child is learning to learn. That's what we are teaching the child to do. Child is learning to be comfortable with his or her own body. Child is learning to push himself beyond a certain what you call certain uh, child is learning to push himself beyond certain tasks, and while the child is doing all of it, the therapist is providing a safe space and ensuring taking care of the physical safety, and also providing an emotional what you call space, so that the emotions or the uncomfortable or the comfortable ones are highlighted, and the uncomfortable emotions, there's space given to it so that the child can process it, transform it, and move beyond that. That is a sensory integration session. So, sensory integration session, what do we achieve at the end of it? We achieve that the child is learning to learn, more aware of the space around, more focused, more attentive, learns things, and it's like, you're not just working at the sensory level. The sensory level is helping the child to move to the next level, where you would see skills like reading, writing, talking, speaking, communicating, more of those kinds of things emerging. From there you go to the next level, where you get attention, focus, concentration, self esteem, ego developing. So it's like, you're moving from one level to another, and to move from this first level to the second level, using those inputs and pausing them when it's too much, and pushing the child beyond, that is the skill and art of conducting therapy, and that is sensory integration. So I hope this helps you to understand what is sensory integration and what is sensory diet. Sensory diet is usually given as a home program. Sensory intervention is conducted by therapists who's trained in how to use the vestibular, proprioceptive, tactile approaches, how to attune with the child, how to move beyond, and those kinds of things. A lot of these things, I do a lot of my online courses where I train parents and teach them on how to observe. I don't make you into a therapist, but I give you ways and I give you pointers which you would learn to observe and conduct a session in a more attuned way, rather than just doing a sensory diet. And I'm not saying sensory diet itself is bad, it is good. But when you're attuned with your child, and when you're aware, and when you're looking at those pointers, whether my child is benefiting, not benefiting, should I continue, not continue, that is the essence of therapy. So I hope this question, I think it was again by Arpita, I think so. So I hope this helps you, what is sensory integration and what is sensory diet. Okay. If you have more questions for me, put them in the chat, in the comments in the chat, or email me to info@khushi.net.in. Okay. Thank you.